everybody always says you have to wait for the right person, for the one, but nobody actually says how. Like, are you supposed to do like nothing and just hope that that person will come? I, for one, kind of misunderstood the whole concept of waiting for the one. Um, you know, it leaves you deprived. For me, I was like, it's a struggle. You want to find your person. And for me, I kind of know what I'm searching for, but then it is like finding a needle in the haystack. I've been able to, I've been fortunate enough to find my best friend. That was a needle in a haystack. That's my person. So I do know, I have hope that it is possible to find my person too in a loving romantic relationship. But it's a needle in a haystack. It's not like that person will just pop up on your door one day. I mean, if it would happen, that would be great. But what do you do in the meantime? And what are those challenges? It's quite a misconception that people have. So, for instance, what people would do, what I would do, is basically deprive myself, right? I'm like, no, that's not my person, that's not the one. So I'm not getting into it. I'm not getting into any relationships, not into physical activities, anything. But what I then feel is I'm starting to doubt myself. Like, am I making the right decisions? Should I maybe settle? I mean, I do not believe that anybody of you, like, that you guys didn't think about that, right? Like, should I settle? Am I putting the bar too high? But since I was able to find my best friend who is like, if I were a jar, she would be the perfect lid. I was able to find that. So it is possible with a relationship. I should not lower my standard. That's one thing I have learned. I should not lower my standard. But then I should also be okay with maybe only finding my person when I am 50. I don't know. Some people do, and some people are lucky and they find that person way earlier. But what to do in the meantime, right? Am I supposed to keep depriving myself? No. That's not the answer. Because that's going to make me super unhappy. So there are 3 types of relationships that I have discovered that you can enter while you are waiting for the one. So the first one is definitely like the one you don't want to do. So the first type of relationship would be unbalanced situationships. So that would be a relationship where one of the 2 people sees potential in this being a long-term relationship, catches feelings, wants more out of it. That can be quite unhealthy, and it is also really hard to distinguish. For myself, I've discovered, am I like having feelings for this person? Do I want this person to be my person? Or is it just me loving the feeling that this person is giving me? It is a difference. It's definitely something I needed to discover, because this, for me, it's hard. It's like not a daily, it's a practice. So it's a battle between the heart or the desires and the brain, right? Because my brain knew, okay, let's say this person is not my person, because there is some non-negotiables for me, and I know that this is not my person. I would feel it. I would really know it. But my heart and my desires and my ego, they think something else. They think, oh, this person gives me attention. This person prioritizes me. This person makes me feel appreciated, validated. But perhaps that person might catch some feelings. They have worded it, for instance, or it's the other way around. I've been in certain situationships where I knew, okay, I might catch feelings, even though I know this is probably not the type of person / the type of life that I want, right? And that is so hard. It is, but it is also something that you learn. That is what I'm experiencing now. It's hard, but you know, then you got to find other ways to fulfill yourself. So I'll get to that in a moment. So the second type of relationship that you can have and approach with caution, because it can turn into the part 1 that I just talked about, but you can actually have situationships, friends with benefits, pseudo relationships even, but tread carefully. So why am I saying this, right? So I have had, for instance, like a pseudo relationship. This was actually with one of my ex-boyfriends. We were already broken up for some years and we hadn't been in contact for some time, and we met through coincidence, and we actually ended up in like a situationship. We basically lived together for half a year, part-time, and that was the most healthy situationship that I could have imagined. And I already hear you guys thinking, sure, situationship with your ex, that would work out. Well, it actually did. There was zero drama. You know why? Very important. We both were 100% clear of we are not the one for each other. We knew that. That was 100% clear. And yes, we did feel love for each other and we cared for each other. So we could be there for each other and we could give each other comfort and in physical ways too. And that was really nice. But we had clear boundaries. We had physical boundaries. We had certain emotional boundaries. We would communicate really well about everything, which is why it worked. And we also knew when it would end, and that we would both be open to finding our person. Like for instance, if I would find somebody that I would be seriously interested in dating, I would communicate that and we would stop everything that we'd had going on and we would just stop seeing each other. And that was totally fine. Like, we did not take that personal in any type of way. So we had the clear boundaries. Like, we are still open to finding the one. This is something that's really comfortable and nice and beautiful and caring in the meantime. It really worked out. Zero drama, and not in it anymore. And that's totally fine. Like, everything worked out. So, but it can be really hard to navigate that, because we were lucky to be exes, because we knew why we were not each other's long-term partners, right? So in day-to-day life, if I would meet a new person and I would say, okay, that's probably not going to be my person, but I do like this closeness, and it kind of ends up in a situationship, right? If you haven't explored the option of a relationship together, it is so much easier to get a wandering mind. Like, I have been guilty of that, where I entered, like, very briefly, like some kind of situationship kind of thing, and I was very clear on, like, okay, that's not what I want. But briefly into this situationship, I started doubting it. Like, my feelings got the best of me. I was like, maybe, just maybe, this could be something maybe I was wrong, you know, maybe I could make this work. Well, in reality, no. So if you end up in that situation, I do have a really good tip for you. Just take some distance. It actually works. Like, and be aware of red flags too. For me, it really helped taking a step back from this person when I was just really aware of red flags for me. So red flags to look out for would be people that are not trustworthy. So if they say one thing, do the other. If they say this is an emotional safe space to share, and then break that space, and when they say this is a judgment-free zone and they start judging you, when you ask them about how did your previous serious relationship end and what was your part in that, and they would answer, oh no, it was kind of mutual, it was and then when you repeatedly ask, but you didn't have any, like, there was no reason on your side, like, what did you do that the relationship didn't work out? Because it must have not worked out for a reason. And then they keep avoiding to answer that question. Red flag. That person cannot take accountability for their actions. Hence, it will be very hard to have an equal relationship with them where you can learn and grow together, because nobody is perfect. Everybody screws up sometimes, but it is about admitting those flaws and being able to grow. So that was a little side drift, but definitely let me know if you've come across some of those red flags and if you have ignored it, because probably been guilty of that too in my past, but I'm so proud of myself that now I'm aware of those things. So back to the type of relationships. You have the third relationship that you can have. So the first one was like the unhealthy, right? The unhealthy situationships where boundaries are not clear and people are just like catching feelings and that. The second one was more kind of like situationships, friends with benefits, clear boundaries, clear communication, those kind of things. So the third one, that is friendships, but extra close friendships. So those would be like not friendships where you're having sex or kissing, but those could be friendships with clear boundaries where you get to be a bit more physically close in terms of hugs. Like, you could have a friendship where you are comfortable and safe with each other, where you could watch a movie on the couch together and, just be in a hug, stuff like that. Or in social settings where you could have a hug. And secondly, you would be able to have meaningful, deep conversations with that person. That is the third one. I would say that's the most healthy one. But be aware to kind of spread those people out, because if you do find that just in one person, all of it in one, so the physical closeness, the deep talks, etc., that's where you'll become a risk of perhaps the first relationship type. So I have fallen into that risk. I did do that. I thought, oh, this is just a close friendship, whatever. We didn't do anything together physically, just hugs. But then I definitely got emotionally invested in that one person, and they did that too. And that's where it could turn into the part one. So now we took a step back from that, So it is really hard. It's really a balance. So then another thing, how do you wait for the one and not need a man or a woman to satisfy your needs, to not need a specific relationship with someone? How do you do that? How do you take care of yourself, right? So that's something I'm figuring out right now and I'm putting to the test. So the first thing that you want to do is check in with yourself, check in with your needs. That is so important. So what am I missing right now? Why am I jealous of that person? What exactly is it? So for me, I noticed, okay, I need physical contact. But I don't want to make relationships decisions because I am deprived of physical contact. That's going to blur my vision on finding the one, right? So how do I get this physical contact without ending up in unhealthy relationships? How do I become not dependent of a certain person, of a type of physical contact, while still staying true to myself and true to my needs? So one of these things is I find friends in social scenes that I can have that with. So for instance, I live together with my really close friend who is a girl, and whenever I feel like I want a hug, I can just hug her. And what also helps, I go to social scenes where I am comfortable. So let's say go to communities, groups of people where you know it is acceptable to ask for a hug, right? So there is this community that I feel quite comfortable. It's not people that I know really well personally, but it is a community. And I know if I ask them for a hug or like, oh, hug or cozy, they don't care. It's fine. And it's not that I'm building a specific personal deep bond with that. It's like a meaningful hug though. I asked them for a hug and it's not like, but it's really like, you know, when you just feel the connection in a hug. So, and then another thing that I noticed, okay, what am I perhaps deprived of? What is something else I'm missing that I am trying to find in a relationship, the first relationship, perhaps the unhealthy relationship, right? What am I trying to find there? So another thing is deep conversations. I noticed one thing I am missing is deep emotional conversations. I love to have those and then grow together and like have new ideas and discussions and talking, and I miss that. But when I find that in one guy, and that's where I become attached, perhaps. So now I'm thinking, okay, how can I do this? How can I have these? Where can I find these deep conversations? The only way to find that is to go and talk to people, groups of people, and just start talking about a deeper subject. Randomly in a conversation, I will blurt things out. That's maybe my ADHD brain or my autistic brain or just my personality. I don't know. So I just blurt it out. And you know, a bunch of people are not gonna go into those conversations and they might feel awkward or they might feel like, but some of these people might reach back out to you, or you will end up in a really interesting, deep conversation. So I did this. I was sitting with two friends, well, people that I didn't know that well yet, like really begin stadium friends, right? Like only hung out one or twice in group setting. And I thought, fuck it. They were talking about something completely different. And I was like, guys, there's this question I really want to ask, and it's quite deep, but it's been on my mind and I just really want to talk about it. And that's where I just asked them, like, what makes you happy in life? And do you feel like you need to have a purpose? And if so, what is the purpose? And they were both like, whoa, that is very deep. Holy shit, we are into this. Let's go. And we started talking about it. And sadly, this person needed to catch a bus, but both of them were very like interested in talking about it. And they were like, okay, next time we get together, we're gonna go into that stuff. Love it. That's amazing. And for instance, yesterday evening, somebody else also asked me a deeper question, and my first instinct was, oh my god, that's very deep, like I don't know, But then my second thought was, oh, that's actually really nice. I would not mind starting to talk about this. So I started talking about it lightly, testing the grounds, seeing how that person would respond to what I was saying, to check if it's a safe space, right? And they had a really good response. They actually continued by sharing. After I shared, they shared. And that's where we got into a conversation. And now I'm like, okay, that was a first good sign of being able to have a deeper conversation with that person. So I might want to try and reach out to that person again and just chat. And trying to spread that out a bit, right? So now I know, okay, there is like this physical thing that I'm missing. There is the deep conversations that I'm missing. This is how I can get those needs. But then the third thing that a lot of people, including me, struggle with. What's the thing you are hoping to secretly get from a relationship? Think for a second. What's the thing you secretly really, really desire? So for me, validation. It is validation. I want like a freaking other person to validate how I feel about myself. And I'm very vulnerable to that, to other people's opinions. I want to feel loved through somebody else's love for me. That's unhealthy. It is also totally understandable. And it's totally okay because we are all human. Everybody loves a little bit of validation, and like a little bit of it is fine, but you do not want to become dependent on it. That's the thing. That can be a problem. So how to deal with that, right? I'm figuring that out. So how do I deal with that? Needing validation of other people. Well, that is practicing self-love, my people. How do I do that, you may ask? Well, I work with affirmations. I write affirmations down. I have pop-ups on my phone, but I can also write myself notes. What I can also do is find it in hobbies, find it in stuff that I am good at, or maybe not even that good at, but I am friggin' trying, And then just complimenting myself on that, like, oh, I am not a bad singer. I went out and I sang, and you know what? It was not perfect. Was it Celine Dion? Maybe not. But I went out on that stage and I did that. And that's also the validation coming from myself, but then still there's also other people still validating me. There would be strangers or people being like, oh, you sang well. And the thin line here is I don't want to just go on stage to get the validation from other people, because that has also been a mistake on my part, where I'm like, oh, I just can only be perfect on the stage because other people might judge me if I don't do it correctly. And I talked to another person about this, like, hey, I'm so scared about going on stage because I'm scared that I will screw it up and other people will judge me. And then they asked me, but do you think you suck? And I checked in with myself to be able to give a real answer. And I said, well, no. In reality, I do not think that I suck. I think I'm good. Even though it might not always be perfect, I do think I'm good. And then they're like, there you have it. Like, you already have this opinion of yourself. Why would you doubt that opinion, And it's like, that's true. That's true. So, yeah, it is really about finding those things of practicing self-love. It can be by doing hobbies. It can be by doing affirmations. Meditation helps. And checking in with your feelings and your needs. For me, that really helps, because when I listen to my feelings and needs, that makes me happy, because I have just taken care of myself. I did self-care. I noticed I need to get off of my screen and go outside. And then I go outside. And it's not that I go on this big adventure. I mean, sometimes I do. But sometimes it's just as simple as just walking outside for 5 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually what I wanted. And now I can go back inside. And that makes me feel good about myself because I listen to myself. I listen to my needs. So see, even if I were to try and find that validation from a man that I do not feel 100% comfortable with, right? But I'm trying to get like this physical validation. But while doing that, I might have some quick dopamine hits, but I might not be listening to myself, to my needs, to my real desires. Like, I'm actually not feeling 100% comfortable with this. That will actually make me feel more shit in the long term, you know? That's also one thing I've experienced. So the heart and the head needs to be sort of aligned, because sometimes the heart can get clouded by emotions, ego, and then that can kind of sometimes overrule the brain that has learned from past mistakes, or is at least trying to learn, right? And the other way around too, when my brain is like, oh yeah, this could be on paper my perfect match, but my heart is just not feeling it. That's why I should not force that. I've been in that situation too. And it can become so annoying, right? It can be so annoying, like, oh, am I really supposed to wait this long for the one? Should I really not lower my bar, my expectations? Well, the answer is no, you really should not. Because I speak from experience. I did that. I tried to lower my bar and then I even tricked myself into believing, you know, I could make this work. This could be the one for me. I didn't realize I was tricking myself. I just wanted it so bad. But then the moment somebody else comes by who is closer to the one that you kind of imagined, and you see all those things that you kind of knew you missed, but you kind of denied it, that's where you will switch. That's at least where you will want to switch. So either you're going to break somebody's heart because you want to switch, or you're going to break yourself by staying with that person and ignoring your true wants and needs. It's your life. And you're also being a dick towards the other person because you're taking away from their life too. So what I have discovered is to really know what I want and to stay with that and to not go off track. And that does not mean that you cannot try different things. You cannot go on dates, because sometimes my brain is maybe too hard set, you know? I should still be able to kind of try, but you will know where it's like a few dates. Okay, I can continue trying this, or no, it's just not going to be it. I want to feel the desire. I want to feel wanted, but I already know this is not it. So yeah, that might mean that I will not find the one until I am old. But you know what I would regret more? I would regret it way more if I would now dedicate my whole life, or like part of my life, become partners with someone that I do not feel like is my one, and then miss out on the one, you know? I would rather just be with the one for 10 years instead of missing out on those 10 years. That's what I'm telling you. I believe that. Does that mean that I want to deprive myself until I'm maybe old as fuck? No. So that's where I want to learn more about what I'm doing right now. Checking in with my feelings, checking in with my needs. How do I get my needs met? How do I take care of myself? How do I love myself? And which are the people that I should surround myself with? And let me tell you about one more secret. The moment I figure out how to do that, how to take care of my own needs and surround myself with different people, and get my own needs met, that is where I will be more ready for the one, to meet the one. Because when I meet the one, I will be healthy, stable in myself. I'll be ready for a partnership. I'll be ready for someone to add in my life and to add in their life, but not to need the person. I would not become dependent on the person. I would have shaped my own person, my own personality. I would know myself more. I would just not be stupid. You know, in my past relationships, I have put aside some of my desires and wants and wishes in life just to get those feelings of love and, you know, all the good stuff that a relationship can offer you. But it is not worth it. It needed to break apart, and for me to later realize I'm so glad I didn't stay in that relationship, or I'm so glad that it ended, because it was not good for me. It was not my path, you know. So that's the nitty gritty of it, guys. That's the nitty gritty of it. Love yourself, wait for the one, and just try and learn in the meantime. That's what I'm trying to do right now. So I am loving that I'm able to take, I'm hoping that some people will want to like also jump on this journey. I want to know, like, what kind of relationships have you guys been in, and were they healthy, were they unhealthy? Have you been in the type 1 relationships, like the really unhealthy ones? Have you been in a type 2 relationships, friends with benefits, situationships, pseudo relationships that actually were healthy and were not toxic? Or have you figured it out to be in the type 3 relationships with really deeper friendships, and are you able to really love yourself? And how do you do that? How do you make sure that you feel fulfilled? You listen to your desires and needs? Let me know in the comments down below. And I feel blessed that I was able to share this. Yeah, I'm really open to hearing what you guys have to say. I don't want this to just be ascending. I want this to be a learning from each other kind of thing, you know? Let's embark this journey together and share what we learned, and by that, we grow, yeah! And did you find the one? I'm curious. What does the one look like for you? So many questions. Okay, I'm gonna go. Bye!